Her mouth opens wide as she begs him with everything she has, "Please, Azuma-kun," and beneath the pounding of his heart a thought begins to form. The empty walkway stretches out beneath an open sky, just the two of them, and the thought finishes itself, that they were never compatible, while she blurts out that every salon in the neighborhood has banned her and she is truly in a pinch. He lifts a hand to stop her, sweating, stammering that he does not think he can, insisting inside that introverts like him were never meant to touch the embodiment of light. She sways closer, hair spilling around him, whispering that he is the only one she can ask, her voice softening into a helpless please. Her eyes brim with tears, her cheeks burning red as she clasps her hands together and pleads for him to do her nails, for her. Flashback to a little earlier, the bell ringing out across the clock tower, ding dong, the afternoon sky wide and quiet above the school. He slumps at his desk, chin in his palm, half listening to the girls gush about some wild photo shoot, deciding he will never understand people like that. Across the room she glows at the center of her friends, laughing, radiant, and he thinks it is hard to believe they are even the same species. She throws her head back laughing, a demi-dragon gal named Gotou Sayori, waving off her friends as they insist she is exaggerating. Seriously, it is so ridiculous. That is Gotou Sayori, the center of attention in class, and even though her vocabulary barely stretches past yabai and panai and maji, she is always smiling, always ringed by friends. In comparison, he thinks he is Azuma Hajime, a boy who hates being looked at and is terrible at talking, the complete opposite of her, and if he had to name the obvious differences, he does not have horns, or scales, or a tail. He slumps at his desk and quietly decides that in this day and age, saying it is because she is a demi-human would just get him called out for discrimination. A voice cuts in behind him with a cheerful "Hey, Azuma," saying he has seen his thing, and he turns to find Myabe grinning down at him. He blinks, asking what thing, and Myabe explains that the magazine featured his example model, while he mutters that it did not turn out all that well. He looks away, half embarrassed, half proud, noting to himself that this is the fourth time his work has been featured in magazines. Myabe leans in beaming, insisting he cannot be serious because it looked really cool, especially the rusty tank armor that did not look like a plastic model at all. The photos spread across the page, and he admits that if there is one thing he is good at, it is making plastic models. Later, the quiet garage, where he borrows a corner of his dad's space to build, customize, and paint, sometimes submitting the results to magazines or taking commissions. Hunched alone at his workbench under the fluorescent light, he tells himself he even makes fun of himself for having such a geeky hobby. But a small smile creeps in as he works, because it is something he loves to do, and it does not feel bad getting praised either. Head lowered, blushing, he mumbles that he was really particular about the texture, though he kind of messed up the dirt, while Myabe keeps going, "Hey." And then she is there, right in his face, flushed and wide-eyed, demanding to know if they were just talking about models and magazines, asking if he bought her magazine by any chance. He freezes, mouth open, eyes blown wide, his brain short-circuiting completely. She is far too close, and all he can register is that her eyelashes are impossibly long, her makeup overwhelming, and that this is actually the first time they have ever spoken. She shoves the magazine at him. "Look, the latest fashion issue for demi-humans," chattering that she modeled the spring items even though the shoot was in winter and going bare-legged nearly killed her. Her friends swarm around his desk teasing that he reads these kinds of magazines too, while she rants about a coworker asking why a dragon still gets cold, and he panics, wait, realizing only now that she is a model. Myabe cuts in with an easy apology, "Sorry Gotou, but they were talking about plastic models," and she echoes it back, blank, "plastic models." Her eyes light up instantly. "Whoa, show me, do you have photos on your phone?" While he stammers that he dabbles, that he takes the pictures with his parents' camera, silently screaming inside about why she is so persistent. He turns away, sweat beading, asking her flatly why she wants to see them so badly, while she sighs that it is such a pity. She leans right into his space, beaming, insisting that of course she would want to, because he makes plastic models so good they get featured in magazines. He looks away with a sour twist to his mouth, thinking that hearing that from an actual magazine model just sounds like sarcasm of the highest degree. Myabe steps in to rescue him, telling Gotou she has startled Azuma a bit, and she laughs and apologizes, admitting it was way too sudden. She bounces off, waving the magazine over her head, calling back that he has to tell her more next time. He collapses face down on his desk with a groan, moaning about why this happens to him, while Myabe chuckles that he really did get bombarded with questions, and tries to reason that maybe she just likes plastic models. He shoots up, insisting there is no way that is true because she is a gal, and Myabe shrugs that it is not that strange, since gals enjoy anime and games too. Myabe props his chin on his hand and adds that she might have had her reasons, but being that persistent means she was interested, to say the least. He grins sideways, suggesting that if there is another opportunity, maybe Azuma could teach her a few things. He glances away, muttering the words back under his breath, if there is another. The school sits quiet under an empty sky, and he tells himself Gotou Sayori will forget the whole conversation in about 3 seconds, since they share no connections and nothing in common. Days later, walking the shopping street in his jacket, mentally counting sanding sponges and paint thinner and deciding it is about time to buy a nip or two, he thinks that even if they do have something in common. He drifts toward the diorama shop at Kanataima Shopping Mall, and the thought closes itself, that it only lasts for a moment. Inside, he picks a boxed kit off the shelf, murmuring that this one looks good. Reaching for a pack of finishing paper, he hesitates, wondering if this is the right grade or if bigger numbers are better. A voice cuts across the aisle, and he freezes, catching someone crouched on a display bench calling something kind of cute. He turns and there she is, radiant and grinning, phone in hand, chirping that it is him, Azuma-kun, asking what he is doing out shopping on his day off, while he chokes out her name. He mumbles that a new kit was released today, and she leans in delighted, pointing at the newly released label and asking if he is going to build it now, while he silently screams for Myabe to save him. She waves a page at him, laughing that she is clueless when it comes to plastic models, then lights up and asks him to teach her, since he knows so much, and he stammers, asking if she is really going to build one. She holds up a pack of finishing paper, explaining she was looking for tools, the kind you use to file stuff, asking if this works, and he can only wonder what stuff she could possibly mean. He shuts his eyes and forces himself to calm down, reasoning that it has to be plastic since she is already standing in a plastic model store. He walks her down the aisle, explaining that if she is looking to shave something down, files or sanding sponges are easy to use, then asks if she is after something specific. She lights up and declares she wants to shave it down hard, like something that could cut diamonds, and he thinks flatly that no tool in a plastic model store can do that. Staring at the racks, he pieces it together, guessing she wants to file down a hard material over a big surface, and she gasps back that yes, what really? He plucks a package off the hook, telling her that in that case the metal files over here are probably easier to use. He holds up the file, explaining that she starts with this one and then works her way up to higher grits so it finishes cleanly. She snaps her fingers with a triumphant nod, announcing that it is just like a buffer, and he blinks, stuck on the word buffer. Her whole face blooms with joy as she clutches the file, declaring she will buy this one and thanking him, Azuma-kun, insisting it will surely be perfect with this. He rubs the back of his neck, flustered, mumbling that he hopes it goes well for her. She spins away with her arms in the air, promising to count on her and to show him what a gal can do. He stands alone in the aisle afterward, silent, sweating, completely unable to process what just happened. Wandering the shop again, he smiles faintly, thinking that in the end he never got to ask what she is building, but it is fine, because there might be something Gotou Sayori wants to create too. He looks up at the finished models on display, deciding he understands the joy of making something just as well as she does. He turns his head with a small private smile, admitting that he could not give her any meaningful advice, while Myabe's words echo back, that maybe he could teach her a few things if there is another opportunity. His eyes close, his smile softening, and he quietly hopes her build goes well. But it did not work, because she stands wailing before him, maji pien, crying that she could not shave off her fingernails at all, that she could not show him what a gal can do. And now, in the present, the two of them face each other again in the empty corridor of the school. He points at her, stammering, the beginning of a realization taking shape. His face twists into pure horror as he demands to know if she bought that thing to file down her own nails. She beams back at him without a shred of shame, chirping yep, and he shouts that her nails are all going to be gone. She thrusts her hand out toward him, telling him to just look at this, her long nails glinting untouched and perfect. She waves both hands, wailing that she really could not shave her nails off, that in the end the file got smoother than her nails. His face drains white, eyes blown wide, thinking that even a metal file cannot scratch them, wondering just how hard her nails must be, asking if she is serious. She scratches at her cheek, complaining that it is so inconvenient being a dragon, that she cannot do her nails because of how hard they are. It clicks for him, and he blurts out that she mentioned being banned from salons. She nods yep, explaining that the tools at the salons break too easily, and their polish peels off fast, which ruins their art. He blinks and asks what polish is, and she raises a finger, laughing that it is what you would call normal nail paint. She describes the little bottles you find in drugstores or 100-yen shops, and he lets out a slow ah. Alone in the corridor, he mulls it over, polish, a buffer, thinking there are plenty of terms common in one field and unheard of in another, just like straight build or seam line removal that only modelers use. She skips along beside him, asking if he remembers when he was talking about plastic models, saying she had heard models and nails are quite similar, so she figured she would use model tools instead of nail tools. He stares at her flatly, asking if that is why she went to the plastic model store, and she chirps yup. Her eyes soften as she remembers, saying the store was spacious with so much to buy, tons of paints just like nail polish colors, and that she gets excited seeing all those colors lined up. Then she drops her head and clasps her hands, begging that she needs his help because she does not know anything about plastic models. She looks up at him with tears brimming, pleading for him to do something about it, saying she has no one to rely on except him, Azuma-kun. He stares off, telling himself that if anyone asked, Gotou Sayori is a shining gal who is the unbeatable center of the class. The classroom flashes back, her surrounded by a crowd while he sits alone at his desk, and he admits he thought she had no worries at all, that she owns everything he does not have. He turns his head, half smiling, saying this is just his opinion, but he stands with his back to her, thinking that nails and model kits being similar probably just means they have a few things in common and nothing more. He turns and tells her that the tools, the paints, the solvents, even the techniques must be totally different between human nails and model kits, and she nods weakly. She staggers, her whole body deflating as the truth lands, while he stands calm behind her. Her face falls, eyes downcast and glistening, and he thinks that seeing her so obviously depressed, hands pressed together, desperately asking for help, that is why. He stands facing her and says he will research this, admitting inwardly that it makes him want to do whatever he can to help. He explains that he will look into how to do nails on his own, that he does not think he can manage it right away, so he needs some time, and her eyes go wide. She explodes into joy, arms flung up, cheering that she has her very own nail artist now. He panics, waving his hands and telling her to wait a moment and listen, that he needs to research first, while she hums that she knows, she knows. She turns to him beaming, telling him that the fact he is serious enough to actually research it makes her so happy all on its own. He scratches his head and looks away, silently admitting that he cannot say no when she looks at him like that. He raises a hand, warning her that he is completely inexperienced with nails and does not know if he can actually do it. He turns his back to the railing, asking her if she expected him to decline, and she says she thought he would say no, so she is already grateful that he agreed. She smiles softly, eyes closed, saying that you never know unless you ask, and if they turn you down, well, that is just how it goes. Leaning on the railing, Azuma admits introverts never really get the option to decline, and it strikes him she seemed ready to accept a no. He watches Gotou below, tail curling behind her, and thinks that with his knowledge it would be nice if he could help her. She glances back with a crooked grin, saying that is just how she felt, and it might have made him a little happy too. They climb the sloped corridor together as he mentions borrowing his dad's garage, explaining that the office beside it is where he builds his models. He turns his head, half smiling, saying it is where he can focus best, dirty and full of model tools if she is fine with that. Gotou's eyes go huge, gasping that it is almost like his own salon, while Azuma internally shrieks that this is crazy and insists it is not that kind of atmosphere. She throws both arms up with a bright wink and a rumbling growl, declaring that whatever, she is looking forward to it. The door bangs shut as she calls back for him to say when he is ready, and he notes for the third time that her feelings run straight into her actions with no delay. Alone, he touches his collar and murmurs to himself about doing nails, He imagines her hand resting in his across a small table, wondering what he even does and whether he needs that thing called polish on her dragon nails. The picture dissolves into scribbles in his head, and he confesses he still cannot imagine how it will work at all. Petals drift past the railing as he breathes out and decides that for now, he will do his research. The clock tower ticks above the courtyard, and he reflects that he would become the nail artist of a dragon gal, and this was his first official request. Days later, in the garage among his half-built kits, he smiles at his mecha and murmurs that it is looking good today too. He pauses, turning toward the glass with a quiet resolve, and says well then. Gotou's stunned face floats back to him, a few days since she asked, and for now they only want to get polish onto her nails, but he tests the brush on his own nail, the stripe going on glossy and smooth, not so different from painting a plastic model. Half in shadow, he studies the shine and frowns, wondering why it does not work on Gotou's nails. bent over a row of little bottles, he remembers her filing so desperately and realizes it was less about shaping them and more about prepping the surface before painting. His model magazine lies open, the red mecha staring back, reminding him that a primer creates a smooth layer for paint to grip and the right thickness brings out the intended color. He stares ahead, working it out, that even a primer layer sometimes needs sandpaper to file the surface down first, and it is probably the same with nail polish. A shriek rips through the garage and Azuma flinches so hard he nearly drops the bottle, brush frozen over his own painted nail. Gotou stands in the doorway glowing with delight, pointing and squealing that he is applying polish on his nails, demanding he admit he kind of wants to do his nails too. Azuma's face goes scarlet as he clutches his hand to his chest, stammering out broken syllables. "Why?" She strolls in with her heels clicking, singing that a few days have passed since she asked him to do her nails, and today is a Sunday so they have time. She shoves her phone in his face with a proud grin, saying she has been searching like crazy for garages around here, this being the third one already, because she figured he would be inside building plastic models, and he can only ask what she is doing while she gushes about how excited she was to see his face. She sniffs and points out that they have not even exchanged phone numbers, insisting that since she will be in his care from now on they should have each other's contact info, and he can only manage a flat O. He glances away, phone in hand, mumbling a yeah, thinking that there is only so much he can do on his own when it comes to nails. Contact saved, she leans over the workbench with a bright okay done, asking how it is looking with the nails and whether he can do it, and he starts by admitting he is also not sure why polish will not stick to hers. She beams okie dokie with her eyes squeezed shut as he awkwardly explains that he wants to inspect her hand first, just like that. She drags a stool over with a clatter, grinning that by the way, he can just call her Sayori, since she is no good with formal stuff and it is easier for him too. She settles into the chair behind him, teasing that they have been talking a lot and she would be a lot happier if he calls her Sayori instead of you, while he stiffens over the workbench and blurts that this is a bit much. Cheeks burning, he half turns with a shaky smile and manages an okay then, nice to meet you, Suri. She presses a hand to her flushed cheek, eyes closed, and hums a delighted a. Her hand settles into his, and the two of them meet palm to palm, her long tapered claws resting against his ordinary fingers. He studies her closely, noting that the back of her hand is covered in hardened skin and scale-like plates, and that she also has. Her nails gleam golden under the lamp, sharp and lustrous, and he thinks that this is really nothing like a human's. He runs his thumb across the surface and frowns, finding it rough, almost painful just to touch, wondering if tiny barbs are what keep the paint from sticking, while Sayori squirms out a small hey. He looks up, honestly puzzled, saying he will not know unless he inspects it and that she said it was fine, and she buries her face, mumbling that when he looks at her and touches her like that without saying anything, it is kind of embarrassing. His eyes go wide as it lands on him, and he manages a strangled "oh, I see." Sayori goes crimson, bumping behind her hand as she stammers that so he is fine with holding a girl's hand. He snaps back with a flustered yelp that he is doing it for the nails and was she not the one asking for his help, and she waves it off with a cheeky don't worry, she has already seen most of what she needs to, leaving him screaming a silent wah. He turns away to gather the bottles, asking if he can try applying some polish next, and she agrees with a dazed oh sure, murmuring that it probably will not work though. He frowns at the sudden pessimism in her voice, deciding that either way they need to understand why it fails before trying anything else. He leans over her hand with the brush held at a careful 45-degree angle, reminding himself not to load on too much paint. The bristles glide across the golden nail as he works from the center, then the right, and finishes with the left. 10 minutes later the polish gives a dry crumbling porori, flaking away from the surface in dull little chips. Sayori looks at her ruined nails and shrugs, saying that is about what she expected, that once it dries it cracks and just peels straight off. She admits she cannot apply anything on her nails at all, that even glue fails, and that the salon people also blamed the surface of her nails, leaving him with a quiet I see. He rolls up his sleeve, cracking his knuckles with a grin, and says that now they will try to file it down, while she gives a nervous yeah. He tells her not to worry since he is used to prepping surfaces before painting, and she sparkles up at him gushing that he sounds like a professional, making him mutter for her to cut it out. He pauses over the workbench and asks if she happens to know what her nails are actually made of, and she blinks up at him wondering what they are made of. She taps a claw against her lip, saying that if she remembers correctly, she has heard dragon horns or scales contain iron or something. Iron, he repeats under his breath, then asks with a wry look whether she is fine with him using a file meant for plastic models. She flings a hand up cheering of course, do it, while he warns her that there is nothing fun about this before he starts. Her eyes go wide and hungry as she leans in demanding to know for real, asking if he does not have some ultimate technique for building plastic models, and he can only ask what kind of. Hunched over the box with a tired look, he tells her that building models is just a repetition of tedious tasks and there is nothing fancy about it. She tilts her head, murmuring that even a metal file did not work on her nails, so she just thought it might be impossible if he does it the normal way. He freezes, realizing she is right, that these nails can flatten a steel file instead of the other way around, and that he needs something harder than steel. His hand closes around a fresh packet of precision files on the bench, and a spark lights behind his eyes as he thinks that if that is the case. He holds the packet up like a trump card, announcing that they will use diamond-coated files. The tools gleam in his grip as he declares that even if they are talking about dragon nails, there is no way they are harder than diamond. Her hand rests in his palm, claws splayed, the slim file poised above them, and he breathes out an all right. He glances up with the file ready, telling her to say so immediately if it hurts, and she gives a small okay. The diamond edge meets the golden nail, and he narrows his eyes, working slowly, carefully. Sayori leans in with her eyes blown wide and sparkling, gasping that it worked, that he is amazing, Azuma-kun, and asking if this is for real. He grins to himself, the file glinting between his fingers, thinking that nice, this one can do it. She bounces in her seat cheering let's go while he barks at her not to move yet and to wait a bit. 1 hour later, both of them are slumped over the workbench, and he asks if she is okay while she manages a limp yeah. Her middle finger gleams smooth and polished under the lamp, and he thinks that he did not expect it to take a whole hour for just one nail. He wipes his brow with a tired smile and says that is about it for the prep, and they should try to apply it one more time. The polish flakes away again, and Sayori stares at her hand with a quiet murmur that it did not work, while Azuma has no words at all. Then she springs up beaming, thanking him and calling him incredible, saying she was never able to paint it up until now and that just the fact he did all this for her means so much. Azuma sits stiff in his chair, sweat on his brow, thinking that an hour just to file a single nail means it will take an insane amount of time to finish them all. His jaw tightens as the question presses on him whether he can really do something about it. He turns the file over in his hand, wondering if matching the grit sizes and finishing more carefully would help, then rejecting it because that would take way too much time. His mouth sets into a grim line, and the word rises up in him, hopeless. He scratches the back of his head with an awkward, apologetic smile, saying he specializes in plastic models in the first place, and he does not know anything about nails. Sayori's eyes go wide, her breath catching, one tear beating at the corner. She lowers her head with a strained smile and says no, it is fine, that she thinks he is right, and he stumbles over an apology that he did not mean it that way. She insists she was the one who selfishly asked, saying she was already happy just watching him try so hard. Azuma sits frozen, thinking he messed up, wondering why people like him say such unnecessary things. She rises from the chair with a scrape, waving him off with a bright don't worry, apologizing for showing up out of nowhere and making a selfish request, saying she would feel bad taking up any more of his time. He half rises after her with an awkward hey, saying he thinks he will find a good method eventually and that he will not give up, but she is already gathering her things. She turns back at the door with her eyes closed and a smile that is too wide, chirping well then, Azuma-kun, she will see him at school. Alone in the quiet garage, he stares at the shelves and thinks that he is such an idiot, that handling nails which cannot hold paint is no easy task, that this is exactly why Sayori was rejected from salon after salon, but she still did not give up. The polish bottles sit abandoned on the bench, and he realizes she had been counting on the fact that he is good at making plastic models. His fist clenches on the desk, because when he said it was impossible, she tried to hide her tears by putting on a smile. He stands in front of the garage window with his back to the room, still, unmoving. His finished models look down at him from the shelves, countless kits built over the years, difficult ones he only managed by grinding out new techniques and knowledge. He turns, jaw set, remembering all the times he thought something might be impossible, and how in the end he always overcame it and finished the build. He thinks back to being a kid on the floor in front of the TV, the reason he got into models being that he loved anime and games ever since he was small. Little Azuma clutches his toy robot with sparkling eyes, because of course he liked robots too. But honestly, as long as the thing existed in real life, it did not even have to be a plastic model, and that is exactly right. Standing before his mecha with fire in his eyes, He realizes what he enjoys most is creating real things from the images in his mind, and then it hits him that it has to be the same with nails. He grabs his phone and starts digging, telling himself to research more and to think harder. Scrolling page after page on nail care, his eyes sharpen, insisting there just has to be something, that he can do something about it. He pictures Sayori's face crumpling behind that forced smile, and swears to himself that he will definitely do her nails. His head snaps up from the screen, eyes blazing, a spark of hope in his voice as he wonders if maybe this will work. A spray can hisses in his hand, mist fanning out in a fine white cloud. Hunched alone at his workbench late into the night, he lets out a satisfied phew and says that the clear coating is done. A few days have passed, and every afternoon since, Azuma has gone straight from school to the garage, masked up among the thinner and paint cans. All that is left is to let the coating dry and hand it over, and every bit of it is for Sayori's sake. They have caught each other's eyes in class a couple of times since then, but not a single word has passed between them, and behind his mask he silently renews the promise that he will definitely do her nails. His fingers curl around the clear gloss spray can, and the thought needles him, because after declaring the whole thing hopeless he has no idea what he is even supposed to say to her now. Nonetheless, he keeps going. 3 days ago, under a night sky and the quiet rooftops of the neighborhood, he is walking home with a stiff face and a nervous bead of sweat. Slumped against the wall of his room, a plastic convenience store bag dangling from his hand, he cannot believe he actually went through with buying it. He stands with his back to the room, wilting with an audible ugh, wondering what on earth the clerk at the register must have thought of him, and concluding that this sort of thing is simply far too much for an introvert like him. The evidence hits the desk with a slap, a glossy fashion magazine called Sopo, a beautiful girl in a wide sun hat smiling out from the cover. He stares at it flatly, insisting to himself that it is strictly reference material for Sayori's nails, and then immediately wilting because it feels far more like he bought it just to look at her. His face crumples into a flushed, scribbly panic, and he shakes his head hard, shouting internally at himself to stop thinking weird things, because this is for the nails, purely for the nails. He flips to the fashion corner for female demi-human girls and finds exactly what he was after, page after page of horned and clawed models posing in bold outfits. Demons, leopards, cows, cats, werewolves, a bright horned girl grinning up at him from the page. He has heard there are supposedly over 100 types of demi-humans, but seeing them all lined up like this really does drive home just how many there are. One model in particular stops him, a girl with blue skin and 4 arms, and he genuinely cannot work out what kind of demi-human she is even supposed to be. Then the page turns and there she is, horns, freckles, that easy confident gaze, and his heart catches as he thinks so this one is Sayori. The photo shoot was clearly taken quite a while back, because of course, her nails are completely bare, and that small detail snags at him. He looks closer and notices something. None of the other demi-human models have their nails done either, though for the cat types and the ones with fur-covered hands and blade-sharp claws it would be pretty difficult to manage anyway. Bent over the magazine, he reasons that the outfits are the main focus in these spreads, so there is probably no real need for the nails to be shown clearly at all. He gazes off to the side, a quiet thought settling in, that maybe there are a lot of demi-human girls out there just like Sayori, girls who worry about their nails too. Alone in the garage under the desk lamp, he admits that he does not really get it, not fully, but it is obvious that her nails matter enormously to her. And as he pictures her face, tearful in one memory and beaming in another, he understands it perfectly, because if he were told he could never paint plastic models again, he would probably be making that exact same face. He stares at her magazine photo, the charismatic dragon gal beneath her own profile page, and the resolve hardens in his chest that even Sayori can have her nails done. Late at night, the garage window glowing against the dark, he thinks that she has every right to paint her nails however she wants, and he is very certain now that it is not impossible. Behind his mask, a small quiet smile finally breaks through as he tells himself he just needs to hand her the finished product, and then the garage door bursts open and Sayori storms in, horns and hair flying, demanding to know why he is not replying to her messages, why he does not even read them, why he keeps rushing off, declaring she knew he would be here, while he can only stammer out her name and wonder why she just barged in like that. He flails, blurting out for her to hold on, his mind spinning at the mention of messages and reading them. He panics that the room is still full of paint fumes with the ventilation fan roaring and the cleanup unfinished, and hurriedly apologizes and asks her to please wait outside for a bit, leaving her with a blank what. 10 minutes later she is sitting there with her arms folded and her cheeks puffed in a magnificent sulky pout, informing him that yes, she waited, while he sheepishly apologizes for keeping her. He finally opens his phone to a wall of unread messages from her and admits he silenced his notifications to focus on his work, letting out a strangled "hoo" as she snaps that she has been really worried these past few days. She erupts, insisting they would be in trouble in an emergency, ordering him to change his phone settings right now in front of her, and all he can weakly manage is that he does not use his phone much to begin with, before surrendering with a "yes ma'am." Fumbling with his phone, he mumbles that he simply assumed she would not be relying on him anymore, which sends her into a startled cry of what and why. Sprawled across her chair, she reminds him that he said he would feel bad about taking up her time, and of course he would, since it took a full hour just to file down a single nail. She points at him, eyes wide and voice cracking, insisting that is exactly why they agreed to look for another way, and then he went home. His jaw drops as he realizes she meant it in that way, admitting he had assumed that after calling it hopeless she would give up on him, while she waves her hands frantically, insisting no, she knows she can rely on him, Azuma-kun. Something loosens in his chest as he mutters that he supposes he was just overthinking things, and she quietly says she sees. She presses her hands together with a sheepish smile and apologizes, confessing she kept feeling like he was avoiding her and had started thinking he was just being cold for no reason, and it seems they both misunderstood each other. He turns to rummage through his workbench with a clatter, and when she guesses he must have needed the time for building his plastic models, he tells her not exactly, because he was not building plastic models at all. He opens the case and there they are, 10 glossy tapered nail tips gleaming in neat rows, and she gasps out the word. Sayori clutches her face and shrieks that they are shaped exactly like her own fingernails. He confirms it, explaining that nail tips are nail-shaped pieces you decorate and stick onto your nails with adhesive, easy to put on and take off, and since they are usually made of plastic he figured even he might be able to work with them. She beams and calls him a genius, Azuma-kun, and he laughs it off with a nervous ha-ha, privately deciding to keep very quiet about how he memorized the exact shape of her nails by watching her and flipping through those magazines the other day. Her face falls, the excitement draining out of her as she starts to protest with a small, wounded "oh," but she reminds him in a panic that adhesive does not work on her nails, and tape does not either, but he calmly tells her they do not need any of that, and to simply place the tips on and try. He watches her quietly, and after a beat of hesitation she gives a small nod and says all right. Her clawed fingertips tremble as she brings the tip toward her nail, and her heart goes bidump, bidump. The tip snaps into place with a sharp chin, and she yelps that it attached, staring at her own hand in disbelief and asking how, while he grins and tells her he built magnets into them. He explains that these tiny neodymium magnets are something he sometimes uses in plastic model building, perfect for parts you want to detach often like a robot's armor or weapons, and since her nails are partially made of iron he reckoned they would stick. She looks up at him with wide, shining eyes, hardly breathing, asking if he really made these just for her, when she thought he had said it was hopeless. He admits he did think it was hopeless, so he went looking for a way to make it work using the skills he already had, and that strictly speaking they are not real nail tips. He lowers his eyes with a small, private smile, telling himself he agreed to help because he was relied on. The case of finished tips gleams between them, and honestly he thinks all of those reasons are true, but more than anything he simply wanted to see her smile. He looks up, grinning openly for once, and tells her plainly that he just did not want to give up. Her face lights up, tears prickling at the corners of her eyes as she cries out that she knows, right? She clasps her hands to her chest and beams at him through a flushed, watery smile, declaring that she did not feel like giving up either. She bounces in her seat, sparkling with excitement, begging to put on all the nail tips at once, and he simply says of course. She leans over the case, humming happily, asking whether the color has glitter in it, and he tells her no, it is just a metallic finish, since he used paint meant for plastic models after all. She swings her legs over the chair, marveling at the beautiful gradient, while he explains that for that one he used an airbrush. Then she lifts her hand to the light, all 10 tips in place, her cheeks flushed pink and her eyes glassy with wonder as she breathes that it is so beautiful. Her clawed fingers spread against the glow, gleaming and perfect, and she whispers that it is amazing, just amazing. She presses her hands to her cheeks and laughs, radiant, blurting out that she did her nails, Azuma-kun. Watching her bounce around shouting that it is crazy and asking if he can believe it, he lets out a quiet thank goodness, admitting that he was confident in how they turned out, but he is really, truly relieved. He closes his eyes with a soft, unfamiliar smile, thinking that it was a little bit of an odd request, but so this is what it feels like to make something for someone else. He watches her twirl and pose, sparkling with delight, and quietly tells himself that well, that is it, then it is over. Later, stretching out his aching back in the garage with a groan, he reasons that once the nail thing is finished Sayori will stop contacting him, and even though they exchanged numbers, they probably will not see each other again, right up until her voice rings out calling his name. She flings herself into him, arms locked around his shoulders, shouting thank you so much, while his eyes go wide and his brain short-circuits with a strangled sound. He wrenches himself away, red to the ears, yelling at her to get away from him, and she apologizes with a sheepish laugh that she just got a little too excited, though she wonders why he is fleeing on his own. Clutching his chest as his heart pounds, he panics that she cannot just hug a guy because she is excited, and wonders desperately whether all gals are like that or if she is the only one who does this. Then she leans in with a bright grin and asks so, what should they make next? And his brain goes utterly blank with a spray of question marks. He stares at her, sweating, asking what she even means by make next, while she tilts her head and says she is super happy about the nail tips. She raises a finger and points out, cheerfully, that they have not even applied nail polish yet. He sputters, insisting that doing nails is a one-time thing, right? Please say yes. She bursts out laughing, waving him off, asking what on earth he is talking about, because that is ridiculous and he is so funny. She barrels on with the endless list: gel nails, matching nails with friends, nails to match her outfits, nails for photo shoots, even ashi nails, since nails have limitless possibilities, and he wilts under the avalanche, thinking this is far too much information. She glances aside with a small, gentle laugh, and her expression softens. Leaning in with a mischievous grin, she offers to let him in on a little secret, Azuma-kun, leaving him blinking in confusion. She spreads her fingers before her face, tips gleaming, explaining that girls pay close attention to hands, both their own and other people's, which is why nails are something you always see. Cheeks flushed and eyes half-lidded with delight, she says you need a mirror to check your makeup or your clothes, but with nails you can just look down at your hands anytime and think how cute you are. Then she plants her hands on her hips and huffs that having only one type to choose from would be boring, like owning only a single set of clothes, which is really unbelievable. His gaze drifts to his own shelf of finished model kits, and he admits, with a sheepish oh, that he supposes she is right, since he keeps his own builds where he can see them and feels good about it too. She grins down at him and declares that with that in mind, she is going to keep asking him for all sorts of things from now on, adding that of course she will not make him do all the hard work by himself. She jabs a finger straight at him, beaming and radiant, announcing that from now on he is her personal nailist, Azuma-kun, and she will never let him escape, so he had better be prepared. A single bead of sweat rolls down his temple as it dawns on him that, without even realizing it, he might have taken on something really big. He lowers his eyes with a small, resigned smile, thinking that he was never supposed to cross paths with a gal like her, but now that it has come to this connection does not seem to be going away anytime soon, and quietly he says all right. She latches onto his arm, cheering that she will be in his care and singing out my lovely nailist, while his face goes crimson and his heart slams against his ribs. Outside the garage he is still barking at her to stop clinging to him, thinking that even so, he still cannot believe he and this dragon gal are the same type of animal. He introduces himself plainly, his name is Azuma Hajime, and he has ended up being personally chosen as a manicurist by his classmate Sayori Gotou, who beams and winks beside him. From now on the two of them will be working together, trying things out and figuring out how to do her nails. Standing in the hallway, he steels himself with a nervous shuffle, realizing there is still one thing he needs to take care of. He steps into the living room where his father sits with a drink, and asks if he can talk to him right now. His dad turns, sharp-eyed and steady, asking what the matter is. He explains awkwardly that it is about the garage, that a friend will be coming over a lot from now on, and he would like to keep some of the tools they will need in there, to which his father shrugs that if it is for plastic models he is free to use the part of the garage already lent to him. He stammers that he wants to bring in tools that are not for plastic models, and his father frowns, saying he does not understand what he is getting at and that he should be clear. Sweating, Azuma braces himself internally, realizing he is going to have to tell him about the nail thing. He explains that his dad works as a paint craftsman at an auto shop, that the garage belongs to him and doubles as both his workplace and hobby space, and that the sole reason Azuma gets to use it at all is because his father allows him to. Since another person will be entering the garage, he has to let him know, so he opens his mouth and begins with an actually. His father swirls the ice in his glass, and after a long pause simply murmurs nails, with a thoughtful H. Then he grins, admitting he does not know anything about them, but that it is Azuma's part of the garage and he should use it however he likes, and Azuma blurts out a startled "Thank you, Dad." His father adds, as he has said many times before, to make sure his friend stays away from the car tools, and also, if he is having a girl over, not to let it get too late, and Azuma answers with a quiet "all right." He walks off with a small smile, thinking that since his dad is a craftsman and can be stubborn he had been a little worried, but he is glad he got permission, and now he just needs to gather the tools for doing nails, while his mother pops up in the background squealing about a girl coming over and demanding to know if she is his classmate. His father downs his drink and desperately deflects, shouting at his mom that she left the water running, while she keeps pressing to be told what kind of girl she is, and so, from that day on, they started gathering in the garage almost every day after school, her voice ringing out a cheerful "Thanks for having me over." Sayori arrives at the garage hauling a stack of magazines from home, and Azuma stammers that it must have been heavy, watching her set them down with a satisfied grin as she agrees that it really was, the two of them deciding to start by sharing everything they have learned about nails. He flips a page and freezes, because it turns out the world of nail art is far, far broader than he ever imagined. The magazines she brought are full of designs that use wire, shells, stones, and metal parts, which he finds unexpectedly fascinating alongside themed sets built around aquariums and animals, and even ashi nails modeled after anime characters. The pages riffle past with a soft paw, and looking at the ones she has dog-eared and squealed over, he thinks he can already guess exactly what kind of nails Sayori likes. Still, he frowns down at the glossy spread and reminds himself that the design is not really the problem right now, and then something catches his eye. He points at a rounded white device on the page and Sayori lights up, telling him that it is a nail dryer. Perched in her chair beside him, she explains that sticking your hand inside dries polish faster than air, and that it even has a light used to harden gel nails, while he repeats the word dryer back at her, lost. She holds up a finger and cheerfully declares that she will explain, that nails come in two types, polish and gel, and that with gel you can keep designing freely until UV light locks it in place, most of the catalog being gel. Azuma quietly mentions that he owns a UV lamp too, since UV-cured resin gets used in plastic modeling for clear parts, and Sayori gasps that modelers might secretly be manicurists, which he flatly denies while a bead of sweat runs down his temple. She flips to another page and points out a row of slim pens, telling him that those ones are called nail drills. She explains that hardened gel is stubborn, so you need something that goes VRM to grind it back off, and it doubles for cuticle care and smoothing the nail surface. Then she presses a claw to her cheek, eyes shut in pure delight, gushing that nail drills are just so cute and that they give off the vibe of being made purely for nails, and something in his chest goes soft watching her. He blinks at the page in profile, deadpan, and points out that it is basically just a hand grinder, while she echoes the words back at him in confusion. He reaches over and produces one from his own workbench, telling her they are called grinders and are used for drilling holes or grinding down plastic model parts, and she yelps that he has just casually pulled out a nail driller, though a chunky one. Sayori clutches her face, sparkling and horrified in equal measure, demanding to know whether she has somehow wandered into a nail salon by mistake, and he tells her flatly that she has not. Looking at the tools laid side by side, he thinks that a normal nail file could never grind resin off a nail, and that the more the two of them dig, the more nails and plastic models turn out to share, in methods and in tools alike. He rests his chin on his fist, glancing sideways at her, and says her name because now that he thinks about it, this really does call for some special tools. She looks up at him wide-eyed as he asks whether they should try filing her nails down with a grinder, and she blurts out a startled "huh," asking if that could even work. He tells her they will not know until they try, and that if he wraps diamond file paper around the tip, in theory it should bite, holding the grinder up so it catches the light while she leans in beside him. She taps a golden claw to her lips, considering, letting out a thoughtful as he promises it will not take anywhere near as long as last time. Gripping the grinder, Azuma asks her if she is sure, if she is not scared, and she counters that nothing ventured is nothing gained. She beams at him with her eyes squeezed shut, insisting he can totally do this, since he is skilled enough to make nail tips from scratch. His fingers tighten around the tool with a soft creak, and the thought slips out before he can stop it, that if she puts it like that, it means she trusts him. From above, the two of them sit hunched over the cluttered desk, and he steels himself, telling himself he has to succeed, even if only as a matter of pride as a modeler. He takes her hand in his and studies it closely, noting that it has only been about 10 days since they filed her nails down, yet the tiny barbs are already creeping back. He tests a sheet of diamond file paper against the nail with a rough zari-zari, thinking that dragon nails apparently need to be polished on a regular basis. The grinder bites in with a sharp geary, and he tells her he will be careful, but she has to say if it hurts, and she answers with a small, alright. Sparks of friction sing QE as the tip works across her nail, and Sayori squirms with a flushed face, letting out a strained "nh" that hits him harder than he expects. He asks if that hurt, and she waves it off with a laugh, saying it just tickled a bit, embarrassed that she made such a funny sound. Azuma clamps his eyes shut, sweating, his heart going fun as he thinks that it sounded far too suggestive, then scolds himself to focus because he absolutely cannot let her get hurt. Steadier now, he tells her the grinder is actually working, and that he will go slowly so she must not move, and she sings back a bright alright. An hour of struggling passes, crumpled tissues and worn file paper piling up around them, and then finally, at last, they manage to file her nails down, and Sayori stares at her hands in shining, teary-eyed awe, marveling at how smooth they have become and asking if she can really apply polish now, and he tells her to give it a try. The brush glides across the nail and the color actually stays, and she watches with a trembling pupil, breathing out that it works. She flails her hands in disbelief, half sobbing with joy, crying out that she actually painted her nails with polish and that she can do her nails too, while he confirms that it is forming a nice even coating. He warns her not to move yet, and she yelps a delighted no way, hands clasped to her chest, saying she has only ever admired how cute polished nails look. She adds that from now on she can put it on whenever she wants, whispering that it is so amazing, and Azuma watches her with a small, quiet smile that he does not even notice himself making. Turning the little bottle over in his fingers, he reflects that for humans, this is nothing more than a bit of fashion. He remembers girls in the school hallway saying how cheap and easy polish is to apply, something even students can casually try without much effort. Which is exactly why, he thinks, watching Sayori hold her glittering nails up to the light, he cannot even begin to imagine how hard it must have been for her, being unable to do her nails at all. He tells her that now she can paint them however she likes, and Sayori immediately refuses, insisting she wants him to paint her nails, and when he asks why she declares that she is super clumsy and he would definitely do a far better job. She leans in with a pouting, pleading nay, reminding him that he is her personal manicurist, so please, he simply has to paint them. The word personal echoes in his skull as he looks away with a crooked, helpless smile, and he gives in, telling her he will paint whatever she wants as long as she brings the color she likes next time. She throws her arms up in a delighted okay, then rummages in her bag with a rustling jiwa, humming a satisfied. She hauls out a case and flips it open with a dramatic zurara, revealing rows upon rows of polished bottles gleaming under the garage light. Azuma reels back, gaping as she cheerfully explains that whenever she spots a cute polish in the nail aisle she cannot stop herself from buying it, and that she had completely forgotten she brought this along thinking it might help today, and there is another whole layer of bottles underneath, which leaves him stammering to ask what about her textbooks. She hoists the case up with a bright aha, admitting she left them at school of course, and he can only stare, asking if she is being serious. Then she blinks, a small blush blooming, and says that she has an idea. She leans in close enough that his heart lurches, asking which color he likes and telling him to pick whichever one he wants to try, and he panics internally over having to be the one to choose. Sweating, he thinks that being told that out of the blue is unfair, that yes he mixes and matches paints for plastic models all the time, but fashion is not the same thing as a plastic model. He holds 2 bottles up, agonizing, wondering if he should go flashy and glittery since she dresses so boldly, or whether a calmer color that does not stand out would suit her better, and finally admits to himself that he has absolutely no clue. Sayori goes very still, her eyes widening, and softly asks if he is trying to pick a color that would suit her. He answers without hesitation, saying yes of course, because after all they are her nails. She hides her mouth behind her hand, cheeks flushing, and lets out a small giggle that she cannot quite hold back. He glances up and asks what it is, and she waves it off with a beaming nothing, telling him to take his time. Later, sighing, he mutters that this would be so much easier if it were just plastic model paint, and Sayori deadpans that she knows, and that she is not a plastic model. Then she looks down at him, flustered and stern all at once, warning him that he really should not go around saying things like that to other girls. He blinks up at her, completely lost, asking what she means, and she brushes it aside as nothing before telling him to hurry up and pick one already. She turns away with her hands clasped behind her back, and he stares after her, thinking that first she tells him to take his time, and then she tells him to hurry up. A bead of sweat runs down his cheek as he holds the bottle, and he concludes with total sincerity that he really does not get gals. He turns one bottle over in his fingers and pauses, because wait, this one is an iridescent color. Sayori launches out of her chair with a whoosh, gasping that he actually knows about this, gushing that it is awesome and she saw it on social media and was so blown away she bought it on the spot. Iridescent paint, a unique coating that shifts color depending on the angle and the light, and used as a premium automotive finish, it radiates a shimmering rainbow glow, and he remembers building a plastic model once after his dad showed him a stunning car painted exactly that way. He tells her that model is sitting second from the bottom in his display case, and Sayori whirls around with wide eyes, demanding to know if he is serious. She presses close to the glass, marveling at how shiny it is, breathing out that it is so purple. She wiggles in place with delighted little bounces, asking if he really built all of these, and he answers that of course he did, quietly noting that her movements are funny. Then she plops down and asks, by the way, whether he knows which anime this mobile suit comes from, and immediately answers her own question with a cheerful nope, adding that she can totally tell he is amazing anyway. He goes rigid, sweating behind a bright smile, realizing he had almost launched into a full lecture about how the protagonist only trained in that suit once, and how he recreated its beam-reflective armor with iridescent paint, and how the thing completely redeemed itself in the movie after its weak showing in the anime, and he chides himself for such a bad habit. He blinks at her, startled, as she announces that they will use this one. He asks if she is sure, since it is the color she likes, and she stands at the workbench with her back to him, her tail curling. She glances over her shoulder with a soft smile, and says that this one changes colors every single time you look at your hand. The iridescent armor gleams in the case behind her as she declares that it will absolutely make her happy. She throws her head back with a radiant, sunlit laugh, and says that is exactly why she wants this color. Something in his chest tightens, and he tells her, quietly, that he will make sure to do it properly, and she answers with a small all right. He looks down at the brush with a faint, private smile, thinking that this is just putting polish on her nails. But even something that simple was out of her reach until now, and he thinks he can only begin to imagine how happy she must be. Sunlight slants through the garage window as he steadies his breath, telling himself that all he can do is paint them as evenly and as carefully as he possibly can. When it is finished, Sayori holds her hands up with tears sparkling in her eyes, crying out a joyful woo. Her nails shimmer under the light, iridescent and gleaming, as she cheers that they did it. She turns to praise him, telling him it looks really good and that he is amazing, only to find Azuma slumped over with his face buried in his hands with a heavy zuin, and she yelps to ask why on earth he looks so depressed. He slumps against the desk, muttering that he messed up the left middle finger and did not paint the right pinky evenly either, wishing he had used a fine tip brush, and Sayori giggles a soft kusu, telling him not to worry since no one will notice, which only makes him grumble that she should not laugh in front of someone who is feeling down. She waves her hands, insisting that is not it at all, that she was just a little surprised, or more like she realized something, that he messes up sometimes too, and that everyone does. He tells her flatly that the storage in the back is full of failed plastic models and junk parts just lying around, and she perks up instantly, demanding to see them while he says there is absolutely no way he is showing her. She whines that it is proof of all the hard work he has done and begs to see, and he answers with a firm refusal, leaving her sprawled across the desk with a defeated well, whatever. She springs back up, phone in hand, chirping that this calls for a celebration since it is the first time she has ever gotten her nails done, and asks if he minds her taking a picture to show her friends, and he says he does not mind. The shutter clicks pahari as her iridescent nails catch the light, and she lets out a small, giddy hee-hee. She curls in on herself, phone clutched to her chest, cheeks blazing as she blurts out that she cannot stop smiling, while Azuma quietly asks whether it is really that impressive. She peeks over the top of her phone, eyes shining, and says of course it is, and then adds that besides. She tells him that him getting upset over a mistake means he is planning to get even better, and he stiffens, caught completely off guard. She says just thinking about what kind of nails he will do from now on gets her so excited, and he looks away with a bead of sweat, thinking that she must be some kind of esper, mumbling a helpless geez. He glances at the polish bottle sitting on the shelf, admitting to himself that he has honestly been wanting to paint her nails an iridescent color, and that doing it badly would go against his principles, though saying so out loud is a little too embarrassing, while Sayori keeps angling her phone for the perfect shot. Sayori grins that he is not very honest, is he, and he lets out a small sigh with a crooked smile, conceding that she could put it that way. The clock on the wall reads past 5 as she gathers her things with a clattering gata-gata, and he tells her that if there is something she wants to try next she should just tell him and he will look it up beforehand, and she sings back a bright yes sir, promising to think about it. At the door she spins around, arm thrown up in a wave, calling out that she will see him next time, her personal manicurist. He raises a hand back with a small, warm smile, saying yeah, and telling her they look forward to her next visit. The door slides shut and he stands alone in the quiet garage, hands on his hips, announcing to himself that it is time to clean up, knowing it will be a while before Sayori comes by again. The garage feels a little empty without her, he admits, though he decides he will use the time to do some prep work alongside his model building, so he can happily welcome her back again. 3 days later, she comes tearing back in, wailing an apology, confessing that she accidentally hit her hand and the polish came right off, while he yelps to ask how it happened so fast. Elsewhere, a phone screen glows with a chat thread, and a voice notes that Azuma is his name, letting out a thoughtful "hmm." A sharp-eyed girl in a hood studies the photo with a lollipop between her fangs, and the thought lands that the more Sayori talks like this, the more curious she becomes.